Danielle's palms stung from the impact, the cold laminate of the counter biting into her skin as she pushed herself up, dignity fraying at the edges like the hem of her once crisp pencil skirt. The restaurant, her restaurant, the flagship of Harper Bites, the chain she clawed her way into existence from a food truck in Oakland, hummed with the wrong kind of energy now. Laughter bubbled up from the tables, not the warm chuckles of satisfied customers, but the cruel snickers of spectators at a gladiatorial fall. El Toro Burger sat on the sun-baked promenade of Cadiz, western Spain's jewel where Atlantic waves crashed against ancient stone walls, a transplant of American comfort food to this corner of Europe where tourists craved familiarity amid the tapas haze. She'd chosen this spot 5 years ago, betting on the fusion. Juicy Angus sliders with a side of Andalusian spice, drawing yuppies from Madrid and expats nursing sangria dreams. But today it was her Colosseum, and she was the lion brought low. Mackenzie hovered at the edge of the chaos, her auburn waves catching the light like copper wire ready to spark. At 28, she was all effortless California glow, freckles dusting her nose from too many beach days, green eyes that could melt resolve or ignite it. They'd met 3 years back at a food expo in Barcelona. Danielle nursing a whiskey after an investor pitch gone south, Mackenzie slinging samples of her experimental aioli. "You look like you need a lifeline," Mackenzie had said, sliding a fry her way with a wink that promised more than salt and vinegar. What started as late-night recipe tests in Danielle's tiny apartment overlooking the Guadalquivir turned into stolen weekends in the Sierra Nevada. Whispers of forever amid the olive groves. Mackenzie had been her soft place, the counterpoint to Danielle's relentless drive. The black girl from the Bay who'd bootstrapped her way to CEO by 34. Every boardroom battle a reminder that the world didn't hand keys to women who looked like her. But now? Mackenzie's phone was out, angled just so, capturing the wreckage. The spilled Coke fizzing across the floor in dark rivers, a child's balloon deflating with a pathetic wheeze, and Danielle, hair escaping its bun in defiant coils, blazer askew, wiping ketchup from her cheek like war paint. "Kinsey, what the hell?" Danielle's voice was low, laced with the plea she hated herself for. The crowd parted slightly, a mix of sunburned Brits and local Spaniards murmuring in a babble of accents. "Mira la jefa se ha caído," one laughed, the word stinging like salt in a fresh cut. It had started innocently enough that morning. A routine inspection, Danielle flying in from the Madrid office to check on the expansion plans. El Toro was her baby, the proof that her visioned, soulful, unapologetic American eats with a Spanish twist could thrive anywhere. Mackenzie managed the day-to-day, her creative flair turning menu specials into Instagram gold. But whispers had reached Danielle's ears. Inventory discrepancies, suppliers shorted, cash flow dipping like the tide. She'd arrived with questions, not accusations, armed with spreadsheets and a bottle of Rioja to smooth the edges over dinner. The confrontation had escalated in the back office, voices rising over the sizzle of the grill. "You're cooking the books, Kinsey. Don't gaslight me." Mackenzie's eyes had flashed hurt, then defiance. "You're paranoid, Danny. Always the CEO, never the partner." And then the bomb. A leaked email chain, forwarded anonymously to the staff group chat hours before Danielle's arrival. Accusations of embezzlement, favoritism, whispers that Danielle was playing the race card to secure grants from EU diversity funds. It was fiction, vicious and viral, but in the hands of a disgruntled sous chef with a grudge, fired last month for skimming tips. It spread like wildfire through the kitchen. By the time Danielle stormed out to address the staff, the dining room was a powder keg. A waiter, emboldened by the murmurs, had accidentally bumped her tray-laden arm. The fall. The phones. And Mackenzie, filming it all, her lips curled in that half-smile that used to mean "I see you," now twisted into "I own you." "Cut it," Danielle hissed, lunging for the phone. Mackenzie danced back, light on her feet like she was dodging a lover's tease. Not a partner's plea. "It's just content, babe. Viral gold. You'll thank me when the views roll in." The word babe landed like a slap, intimate and profane in this public pillory. Danielle's chest tightened, the air thick with fry oil and betrayal's metallic tang. She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, not just embarrassment but the slow burn of realization. This wasn't a slip-up. This was sabotage, orchestrated with the precision of someone who knew her blind spots. The manager's office door swung open then. Raul, loyal Raul, with his salt and pepper mustache and unwavering Andalusian calm, barreling through.
Señora Harper.
What is this madness? He took in the scene. Danielle steadying herself, Mackenzie pocketing her phone with a shrug, the patrons edging closer like sharks scenting chum. Raoul's eyes narrowed on Mackenzie, the woman he'd watched bloom from barista to operations lead under Danielle's wing. You! He growled, pointing a flour-dusted finger. This is your doing? Mackenzie's laugh was a brittle thing, echoing off the tiled walls adorned with vintage Route 66 posters. A nod to Danielle's roots. Oh, come on, Raoul. Lighten up. It's a prank. Danny gets it. But her eyes darted to the exit, the lie as thin as the bun on a dollar menu slider. Danielle straightened, summoning the steel that had carried her through venture capital cold shoulders and Silicon Valley microaggressions. It's not a prank, she said, her voice carrying now, drawing the room's attention like a spotlight. It's theft. Of trust, of time, of everything we've built here. She turned to the crowd, her gaze sweeping over wide eyes and half-eaten meals. El Toro isn't just burgers. It's heart stories on every plate, from the immigrant hands that shape the dough to the dreams that flavor the sauce. And someone in this room forgot that. Murmurs rippled, phones lowering slightly. A young woman in the corner, braids piled high, nodded fiercely. One of the line cooks Danielle had mentored through culinary school. But Mackenzie? She slipped toward the back, her denim jacket a blue blur against the chaos. Danielle let her go, the ache in her gut sharper than any fall. Love, she'd learned young, was a gamble. High stakes house always wins if you're not watching the dealer. By closing time, the video was everywhere. Burger Boss Fall trended on Spanish Twitter, clips remixed with dramatic mariachi overlays. Comments poured in. So too big for her boots. Diversity higher drama. The racism veiled just enough to sting without repercussion. Danielle retreated to her rented casita on the outskirts of Cadiz, the whitewashed walls closing in like a confessional. She poured a glass of that Rioja, the one Mackenzie had picked out last summer during their road trip along the Costa de la Luz. The wine was tart on her tongue, memories flooding. Stolen kisses in dune grass, Mackenzie's head on her shoulder as they watched ferries slice the horizon. How had it soured so fast? Her phone buzzed. Roll. The books are clean on my end, Senora. But Mackenzie. She rerouted supplier payments last month to an offshore account. I suspected, but... His voice trailed, heavy with apology. Danielle's grip tightened. Offshore. The word conjured boardrooms in Miami, the cutthroat underbelly of expansion she'd shielded Mackenzie from. Her partner hadn't just skimmed. She'd schemed, using their shared access to siphon funds for some ghost venture. Perhaps that secret project she'd hinted at. Eyes alight with ambition Danielle had mistaken for passion. Sleep evaded her that night. The crash of waves outside a mocking lullaby. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving, painting the ceramic tiles in shadows. Danielle rose, muscles protesting the cot she'd crashed on, and faced the mirror. Her reflection stared back. 34 going on weary, the fine lines around her eyes etched by too many late nights balancing ledgers and hearts. She was Danielle Harper, daughter of a single mom who'd flipped burgers in Oakland delis, architect of an empire that employed hundreds, from Syrian refugees needing dough in Gibraltar to queer artists designing logos in Seville. This humiliation? It wasn't the end. It was ignition. She booked a flight back to Madrid that afternoon, but not before drafting the first email. To her lawyers and the board. Forensic audit. Immediate freeze on accounts. And to the staff. A group blast raw and real. We've been hit where it hurts.
But El Toro stands.
Show up tomorrow. We rebuild together. Responses trickled in. Fist emojis from the cooks. A voice note from the braids-wearing mentee vowing loyalty. Raoul's was simplest. Justice comes slow in Spain, but it comes. Days blurred into a haze of depositions and damage control. The video's virality peaked, then ebbed, replaced by fresher scandals. Danielle holed up in her sleek office overlooking the Retiro Park, the city's pulse a distant thrum. Mackenzie went radio silent. No texts, no calls, just a single Insta story of a sunset in Lisbon caption. New horizons. The ghosting cut deeper than the fall. A second betrayal in the quiet hours. Danielle threw herself into the audit, poring over transactions until her eyes burned. The trail led to a shell company in Gibraltar. Poetic, that rock of secrets, registered under Mackenzie's maiden name, funneled for consulting fees. €20,000, enough to fund a startup pitch, but a dagger to the heart of their shared life. Nights were the worst. She'd wander the boulevards past couples tangled on benches, the air thick with jasmine and regret. Spain had been their escape, a world away from America's sharper edges, where Danielle could hold Mackenzie's hand without the weight of stairs. Here in the labyrinth of old towns, love felt possible, tender, unscarred. But now? Every archway echoed with what-ifs. It was the fifth day when the call came. Raúl voice-edged with urgency. "She's back, señora.
Ate el toro."
Demanding her things. Danielle's pulse quickened, a mix of dread and fire. Return to the scene? Not yet. But justice, that she could orchestrate from afar. "Let her in," she said. "But wire the security cams. Every angle." The plan coalesced like a perfect sear on a cast-iron skillet. Quiet, controlled, devastating. Danielle coordinated with the PI she'd hired, discreet, ex-Mossad with a knack for digital trails. By evening they had it. Bank wires to Mackenzie's new partners, a venture capitalist duo in Barcelona with ties to shady crypto schemes. Not just embezzlement, fraud layered like an onion of deceit. Danielle's fingers hovered over the send button for the press release, but she paused. This wasn't about scorched earth. It was reclamation. The sun dipped low over Cadiz cathedral spires as Danielle's rental car ate up the highway. The engine's hum a steady counterpoint to the storm in her chest. 6 days since the fall, 6 days of unraveling threads, of Mackenzie's absence carving hollows under Danielle's eyes. She'd delayed this return, letting the audit simmer, the evidence stack like bricks in a fortress. But Raúl's update that morning had shifted the sands. Mackenzie wasn't just collecting boxes. She was rallying holdouts, whispering to the waitstaff about unfair firings and toxic leadership. The betrayal metastasized, roots digging into the soil Danielle had so carefully tilled. El Toro came into view like a mirage, its neon sign flickering against the dusk. A bull's head biting into a burger, bold and unbowed. Danielle parked in the alley, away from prying eyes, her heart a war drum. She smoothed her blouse, simple white cotton, no armor today, and stepped inside through the service door. The kitchen smelled of cumin and caramelized onions, a bomb against the bile rising in her throat. Raúl met her there, his face a map of worry lines. "She's in the office. Alone. The crew's out front, prepping for the dinner rush. They don't know you're here." Danielle nodded, the weight of decision settling like a mantle. "Good. Keep them clear." She moved through the narrow hall, posters of her food truck days peeling at the edges, reminders of origins, of grit. The office door loomed half ajar, Mackenzie's voice drifting out in low persuasion on a call. "Yeah, the old bat's crumbling. We pivot now, before she tanks us all." The words landed like fists, but Danielle pushed through, the door creaking like a judge's gavel. Mackenzie spun in the swivel chair, phone clattering to the desk, her green eyes widening in a flash of fear? Guilt? It vanished quick, replaced by that practiced nonchalance. "Danny, didn't expect the cavalry so soon." She rose, all 5'6" of poised deflection. Her waves tousled like she'd run fingers through them in frustration. The desk between them held the detritus of their shared life. A framed photo from their first anniversary in Rhonda, arms linked over a cliffside view. A half-empty mug with "Boss Babe" scrawled in Sharpie, Mackenzie's handiwork. Danielle closed the door softly, the click echoing finality. "Neither did I. But here we are." She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Not aggressive but unyielding, the CEO poise she'd honed in pitch rooms where her blackness was the unspoken elephant. Up close, Mackenzie looked smaller, the freckles stark against pallor. Her jacket rumpled from whatever Lisbon layover had hosted her flight. "Sit," Danielle said, gesturing to the chair. It wasn't a request. Mackenzie complied warily, perching on the edge like a bird ready to bolt. "Look, I don't." Danielle's voice was velvet over steel, cutting the air clean. She pulled a folder from her bag, manila, innocuous but heavy with printouts. Wire transfers timestamped to their date nights, emails drafted on Mackenzie's laptop during sick days. "You didn't just take money, Kenzie. You took pieces of me. Of us. Why?" The question hung raw as an open wound. Mackenzie's gaze dropped to the folder, then flicked up, defiant. Because you were suffocating me, Danny. Always the empire, never the equal. I pitched ideas that vegan line the pop-up in Granada, and you nodded, then filed them away. I wanted in, not on the sidelines. Her words tumbled, laced with the hurt of half-truths. And yeah, the money. It was seed. For my own thing. A cafe chain, queer-owned, focused on fusion without your corporate shadow. Danielle's laugh was bitter, low. Queer-owned. Like this wasn't El Toro's half your blood. Our late nights tweaking recipes, your aioli on every menu. But you chose shadows over sunlight. She slid the folder across, pages fanning like accusations. Gibraltar shells. Crypto ties. That's not a cafe, Kinsey. That's a hustle. Mackenzie's facade cracked then. Tears welling but not falling, pride's last stand. You don't get it. Growing up in that podunk Oregon town, I watched my mom scrape by in diners, queer and invisible. I came here for more. With you, I thought. But you built walls. The board, the investors, they look at me like arm candy, not architect. She reached for Danielle's hand, instinctive, the touch electric even now. We could have been partners. Really? The contact burned, memories surging. Mackenzie's laughter in the rain-slick streets of Seville, her body warm against Danielle's in the narrow bed of their first shared flat. Love in Spain had been a revelation. Fierce, unapologetic, the world's edges softened by siestas and sunsets. Danielle had let herself believe in it, in them. Two women carving space in a landscape that revered passion but whispered about its forms. But trust? That was the fracture line. She pulled back, gentle but firm. Partners don't film falls. Don't leak lies. Her voice softened, the drama yielding to the ache. I loved you enough to share the keys. You used them to pick the lock. Silence stretched, thick as the fog rolling in from the bay. Mackenzie's shoulders slumped, the fight draining like batter from a bowl. I'm sorry, she whispered, the words small, genuine in their breakage. It spiraled. The VC guys, they promised validation. I got scared. Danielle watched her, the woman who'd once been her horizon. Pity stirred, mingling with the fury. A humanistic tangle, the drama of flawed hearts. Scared we wouldn't make it? Or scared you'd outgrow me? Both. Mackenzie's admission was a gut punch, honest in its cruelty. She stood then, gathering her bag, the photo frame tucked under her arm like a shield. I'll wire it back. All of it. And the video. I'll kill it. But Danielle shook her head, the decision crystallizing. Too late for that. The board's calling a vote tomorrow. You'll be out, clean exit, no charges if you sign the NDA. She paused, the romantic in her warring with the realist. Go build your cafe. But leave the shadows behind. Mackenzie lingered at the door, hand on the knob, eyes searching Danielle's face for a reprieve that wasn't coming. This isn't how our story ends, Danny. Not like this. Danielle met her gaze steady. Stories don't end. They pivot. The door clicked shut behind her, the echo reverberating through the hall. Outside, the dinner rush was in full swing. Laughter genuine now, plates clinking in rhythm. Danielle emerged into the fray, Raoul sliding her an apron with a nod. The slider's special tonight? He asked, eyes twinkling. Double spice, she replied, tying it on. For the first time in days, the knot felt like armor, not noose. She manned the grill, flipping patties with precision. The sizzle a symphony of rebirth. Patrons trickled in, recognizing her from the viral clip but offering smiles, not sneers. A young couple, hands intertwined, ordering with shy admiration. Heard about the buzz, the woman said, her partner squeezing her fingers. Glad you're back. Danielle plated their order. A flourish of aioli, Mackenzie's recipe, untainted. Takes more than a slip to keep a good thing down. Word spread through the shift. The boss was in the house, justice served not with fire but with fortitude. By midnight, as the last customers waved goodbye, Danielle stepped onto the promenade. The Atlantic whispered secrets to the shore, stars pricking the velvet sky. Her phone lit up, not Mackenzie but the board chair, votes in your favor. Full support. What's next? She typed back, expansion. Hearts and all. But before hitting send, a text from an unknown number. Mackenzie. Wired the funds. And the video's down. For what it's worth. I loved you too. Be fierce. Danielle deleted it unread, the delete button a small exorcism. Love's embers could warm or scorch, she'd choose the forge. Yet the night air carried a chill, the kind that seeped into bones. She walked the beach path, sand gritty underfoot, waves etching patterns of impermanence. Spain's coast had taught her fluidity. Tides that gave and took, lovers that mirrored the moon's phases. Mackenzie had been her waxing bright and full. Now the waning left room for new light. Back at the casita, sleep came fitful dreams tangled with grease and green eyes. Dawn brought clarity. A call to her mentee, the braids-wearing cook. Aisha, that pop-up idea you sketched? Let's make it happen. Queer fusion, your lead. Aisha's whoop echoed through the line, a spark reignited. But Justice's aftertaste was bittersweet. The audit revealed more. Not just Mackenzie but a junior accountant in on the skim, lured by promises of quick cuts. Danielle fired him quietly, no spectacle, mercy as strategy. The press release dropped that week, framed not as scandal but resilience. Harper Bites stands strong. A story of trust rebuilt. Shares ticked up, investors circled back. El Toro thrived, specials selling out, the humiliation transmuted into lore. A tale told over milkshakes, of the CEO who rose. Still in quiet moments, Danielle traced the scar. The way Mackenzie's laugh had once anchored her, now adrift. Romance, she'd learned, was drama's cruelest act, promising eternity in a finite script. But humanity? That lay in the rewrite, the courage to flip the page. Weeks later at an industry mixer in Seville, whispers followed her like smoke. The Burger Queen. They called her, half mocking, half awed. She navigated the room in a crimson dress that hugged her curves like a promise, accepting handshakes and olive branches. Then across the courtyard under lantern glow, Mackenzie. Leaner, hair cropped short, in a linen shift that screamed reinvention. Their eyes met, a current pulling taut. No words passed, not yet. But in that gaze the conflict crusted. Forgiveness's edge sharp as desire's recall. Danielle raised her glass, a silent toast to pivots. Mackenzie mirrored it, a ghost of a smile. Justice delivered, but the heart's ledger? That balanced slower. The Seville courtyard pulsed with the low hum of clinking glasses and murmured deals, the air heavy with orange blossoms and the faint tang of aged sherry. Danielle stood at its periphery, her crimson dress a bold stroke against the terracotta walls, drawing glances that lingered, admiration laced with the residue of scandal. 2 months since the fall, and El Toro Burger had not just survived. It flourished, a phoenix of patties and perseverance. The Cuta's location hosted weekly pop-ups now, Aisha's queer fusion nights drawing crowds that spilled onto the promenade. Plant-based chorizo sliders, rainbow slaws, stories shared over candlelit counters. Danielle's empire expanded eastward, a second spot breaking ground in Malaga, funded by investors who now touted her unbreakable brand. But tonight, under the stars' indifferent watch, the past circled like a moth to flame. Mackenzie. She'd spotted her weaving through the throng, cropped hair a defiant pixie cut, freckles sun-kissed from whatever coastal reinvention she'd chased. The linen shift clung softly, evoking beach walks they once claimed as theirs. No entourage, just a glass of vermouth held like a talisman. Their eyes locked across the space, time folding in on itself. The office confession, the beachside ache, the viral echo of laughter turned to lament. Danielle didn't flee. She crossed the tiles, heels clicking a deliberate rhythm, the crowd parting instinctively for the woman who'd turned humiliation into him. Up close, Mackenzie looked transformed, eyes clearer, jaw set with the resolve of fresh starts. "Danny," she said, voice steady, no trace of the quiver from that office night. "You look radiant." A beat charged. Danielle sipped her Rioja, the wine's depth mirroring the moments. "As do you. Lisbon treating you well." Intelligence from mutual contacts. A micro-cafe there, Mackenzie's venture small but buzzing. Artisan coffees with queer-lit readings. A nod to the dreams she'd stolen away to chase. Mackenzie's smile was wry, self-aware. "It's home now. Tiny but mine. No empires, just enough." She gestured vaguely, the vermouth swirling. "Heard about Aisha's nights. Proud of you for seeing her spark." The compliment landed soft. A bridge extended over chasms. Danielle felt the pull. The romantic gravity that had drawn them from expo flirtations to shared sunrises. But drama's residue lingered. the betrayal's scar tissue tender under pressure. It wasn't me alone, she admitted, the words humanistic in their honesty. You taught me to taste the potential. Even if you took the recipe with you. Mackenzie winced, genuine. I was a fool. Scared of being the side character in your blockbuster. She set her glass down, vulnerability cracking the poise. The money. It was never about greed. It was proof to myself, to the world, that I could stand without your shadow. But I burned us both in the fire. A hush fell between them, the mixer's chatter fading to white noise. Mackenzie stepped closer, not touching, but near enough for the faint citrus of her perfume to stir ghosts. Can we talk? Not as exes or adversaries. Just as women who loved hard and lost harder. The invitation tugged, the climax of their arc cresting not in fury, but fragile possibility. Danielle hesitated, the CEO's calculus warring with the lover's ache. Justice had been served, funds returned, video scrubbed. Mackenzie's quiet exit from Harper bites a footnote in the ledgers. But the heart demanded more. Not vengeance but understanding, the romance of redemption. They slipped away to a shadowed alcove, the courtyard's fountain murmuring accompaniment. Words spilled then unhurried. Mackenzie's Oregon scars, the invisibility of a queer girl in conservative corners. Danielle's Oakland armor, forged in the fires of micro-doubt and macro-hustle. I saw you as my equal, Danielle confessed, the admission a release. But I built the pedestal too high. Forgot to pull up a chair beside. Mackenzie nodded, tears glinting unshed. And I climbed down the wrong way, lashing out instead of asking for the ladder. Laughter bubbled, tentative, easing the tension. Remember that time in the Sierra, when we got lost chasing that perfect olive grove? We argued for hours, then made love under the stars like it was the end of the world. Danielle's throat tightened, the memory vivid. Cool earth, Mackenzie's whispers blending with night birds. It felt like the beginning. Past tense, but the warmth lingered, a ember not fully cold. As the mixer wound down, they parted with numbers exchanged. No promises, just portals. Coffee. Mackenzie ventured, green eyes hopeful. In Lisbon. Neutral ground. Danielle smiled, the gesture lighter than it had been in months. Maybe. I've got a chain to run. Back in Madrid, the days stretched into a new rhythm. Board meetings hummed with expansion talks, Gibraltar outpost, a bold toe dip into the rocks enclaves. Aisha's pop-ups went chain-wide, her designs on menus, her story in trade mags. Danielle mentored more. A trans barista in Cadiz, a Latina line cook with big dreams. The empire grew not just in footprint, but in soul, humanistic, inclusive, a counterpoint to the cutthroat tales that birthed it. Yet Mackenzie's text arrived a week later. Lisbon's groves aren't the same without you. But I'm planting anyway. Yours in growth. Attached, a photo, her cafe's opening, rainbow flags fluttering, a slider on the menu, Harper Heat, credited with a wink. Danielle framed it on her desk, not as trophy but talisman. Betrayal had been their storm, but storms cleared skies. She replied, send recipes. We'll collaborate. From afar. Months turned, seasons shifting like tides. Danielle's casita became home base, weekends claimed for Cadiz sunsets, the Atlantic's roar therapy. Romance flickered in, dinners with artists, walks with writers, but none rooted like Mackenzie had. The bar set high by that fierce, flawed love. Then the invite. Mackenzie's cafe anniversary, a small affair. Danielle flew in, crimson dress traded for jeans and a tee, vulnerable, approachable. The space was magic. Exposed brick, bookshelves groaning with Audre Lorde and local poets, the air rich with espresso and empanada steam. Mackenzie greeted her at the door, hugged tentative, then tight, bodies remembering what minds had scarred. They talked till closing, patrons thinning to intimates. I sold a stake, Mackenzie shared, eyes bright. To ethical investors. No shadows this time. Danielle nodded, pride swelling unbidden. And El Toro? We're opening a collab spot in Tangier. Your Aioli's the star. The night ended on the Tagus banks, city lights dancing on water. No kisses, not yet, but hands brushed, electric promise. We're better apart, Mackenzie murmured. But maybe. Orbits that cross. Danielle turned, facing her fully, the drama resolved in dawn's light. Orbits cross when stars align. Let's see what the sky says. In the end, Justice wasn't a gavel's fall or a viral takedown. It was this: two women scarred and shining choosing growth over grudge. Spain's western shores bore witness, waves whispering of endless returns, hearts mending in the salt-kissed air. Danielle drove back at sunrise, radio crooning Old Soul, the road ahead open. Not perfect but possible. And in that humanity, romance reborn. Not as fairy tale but as fierce, flawed truth.